On this edition of Forever Home, we're in Landenberg, Pennsylvania, talking about storm damage. Customer called us because they had a tree branch go right through the top of their roof here, punctured a big fist-sized hole, and we're going to be taking that apart and putting it back together. That's next on this edition of Forever Home. Here we go. So our first step in solving this problem, we got up in the attic and kind of looked around, and we need to get the nails out from underneath this section of the area so that we can put a piece of 2x6 or 2x8 underneath and re-support this piece of sheathing that's up here. So in order to get that up, we have to have the nails out of the way. So we're going to start up here. We've already loosened these shingles up all the way across. We're going to pop the nails out of this row, which is going to allow us to fully remove this shingle here, and then we can start working our way down. So we've removed 2 rows of shingles from here. We've measured our distance between our truss system, which is 22.5 inches, which is sort of what you would expect there to find. Looking at the size of this hole, I think we definitely need to go with a 2x6 or maybe even a 2x8 to make sure that we have this covered, and we're going to cut a piece the right width. We're going to get it nailed up here and sandwiched between the two. We're going to get some screws in from the outside to hold that into the original 2x4 part of the truss system, and then once we have that pushed back up, now that I've got all the nails out of the way, we'll get that up tight. Then we can come back up top here with a vibe tool, cut this out square, cut on a new piece of OSB patch to put in there, and then we can start the process of getting the layers right, to take our ice and water shield, tuck it up underneath the tar paper that is here, get it layered over the old stuff, and make sure that we are 100% protected. Put 2 new shingles in, because the shingles that were here, they've taken a pretty significant hit. You know, that one's done, this one's done, so we're going to replace those with 2 new ones. So next step is to get into the attic and get this reinforced from the bottom side. So the first thing I noticed when we got in the attic here is these streaks that run down this pipe and all of the wet that has accumulated here around the base of this. So I asked him if he's having any water leaks in the ceiling. Them alone, we don't see anything down there, but this is a little bit concerning as to whether or not there's going to be any challenges. We do a little water staining there on the drywall ceiling. So I think we're going to recommend some sacrificial boots for up on top of this, unless they're going to wind up getting the roof replaced because of the utter damage. So let's take a walk over here, and you can see the hole that we have cut in, and we need to build ourselves a ladder, and we'll show you that step next. All right, so you can see I've attached a couple of 2x6s here that I'm going to use to climb up, and then I've got a piece of lumber here that I can lean against to help stabilize myself while we're trying to put in the support board for underneath where the hole is at. And now that that part is done, I can get over here and take down the boards that I used as support to hold me while I was putting that new piece up on the top there. We'll get that done, go back outside, and put the shingles back together. Here we go. So pretty easy to see our new 2x8 that is nailed up and screwed up inside of there. And so now all we have to do is take our fancy little vibe tool here, and we are going to remove and make this a nice square cut so we can section in a new piece of OSB, and then we can get back to putting the shingles back together. All right, so we got a nice square cut out of the old OSB that was here. This is our nice solid block of wood that we have underneath. I can drive some nails on both sides and make sure all of this is good and secured into that big mounting block, and then we can go to town by cutting our other piece of OSB here and putting that into place. Now, the alternative method of doing this would be to remove a very large section, say 4 foot by 6 foot of shingle, to get far enough back that I can get 2 foot, rafter to rafter. Maybe you only need to do 3x4, but you're going to take off a lot more shingles depending on where the joints are in the shingles to be able to get from this piece of rafter or truss over to this piece of truss. And if I just section in 1 block between those 2 trusses, that plywood has no stability. There's nothing to prevent the waves and the dips like you see on other parts of the roofs here. In theory, if that sheet of plywood is spanning multiple rafters or trusses, and all those trusses were set at the same level, you shouldn't have those humps and those dips. Now, 7/16 OSB does have a tendency to wobble a little bit more than traditional full sheets of plywood did back in the day before we stopped using that. You can get 5/8, and if you're using the zip system, they typically recommend, if you're going to be 24 inches on center, that they want to see 5/8 zip on the top, because that also helps mitigate the ups and the downs. But because we want to save the customer some money, keep this repair as inexpensive as possible, especially knowing that they may be coming through and trying to negotiate with the insurance company to get more done or the whole roof replaced or something. We don't need to spend a ton of money here by taking off a large section, replacing a whole sheet of plywood. When the roof gets done, it can be done at that point if that's what they want to do. But for now, we have a nice solid block of wood here. We can anchor the old OSB into that new block of wood. We can just replace the patch that we need to support the shingles to prevent impact damage from having a hollow void underneath there. And this is going to be just fine for what they need to do. And it helps keep the cost down for them. So we've got our ice and water shield in here. I've run that up as absolutely high as I can possibly get it. I think I'm just underneath these nails up here, and there's no way we're getting those out without taking the entire ridge cap off. And again, in the name of trying to keep costs down for the customer, we're not going that far. There shouldn't be any water getting under that anyways, and this should be plenty sufficient. I did bring this all the way down to basically the tar line. I'm going to put some nails through this to help pull it down, and then we will put new tar roof gunk on here to adhere to that next layer of shingles down. And there's gonna be some debate in the roofing industry. Somebody's gonna tell me I shouldn't run it down to here, I should stop here. But I think just belt and suspenders, I'm much more comfortable with this coming all the way down. And the argument is gonna be, well, that could potentially allow wind blow off. I don't think so if I put nails through this. It is adhered down, and if you've ever tried to peel ice and water shield back off after it's adhered, it's not happening. So this thing's gonna stick really well, and then when I put the goo on top of that, that'll hold the next shingle down. So we shouldn't have any problem with any wind blow off. I think we're gonna be safe and solid on that. But like I said, somebody's gonna disagree, and if that's you, feel free to put it in the comments and tell us why. So the customer had some leftover shingles from the redo of the front half of this roof. The back roof hasn't been done yet. They've got an Owens Corning here with their shore nail line, sort of helps you make sure you know exactly where stuff's going. And the neat part is their tar is on the bottom of that shingle, so I actually am not gonna have to add any goo. I probably will anyway just for belt and suspenders, but it's gonna have it on there to adhere it down. The other reason I'm not too worried about blow off in this situation, 6 nails per shingle, but also a lot of these nails are going right into that piece of 2x8 that I put down in here, so it's solid holding, not just holding an OSB. That'll help too. Now on one hand, I could pull out the compressor and the nail guns, but for putting 2 shingles back in, that seems kind of silly. So roofers, if you don't have one of these roof snakes, you need to get one. They are phenomenal. They have a little bit in the top that holds your nail, and then once it holds my nail, I can sit this here on the shingle, pound on here, and drive that nail in without having to damage the shingle by lifting it up high enough to get my hammer in there. Pretty neat toy. So you load your nail into the slot like that, and then you can sit there and hammer on that until it gets partway down, and then you can take it out of the slot and use the heel down here to finish driving it, having your hammer almost directly over what you're doing, and definitely makes this easier, safer, keeps your fingers out of the way, and protects the shingles in the process. So we got one last little challenge to deal with, and that is that this shingle here has had some damage come out of it, and the only way to get that out is to pull these nails here and to pull these nails here, which you're not getting unless you pull the ridge cap. So how are we going to protect the shingle below with that spot? So what we did here is we simply inserted, and you can't see it now because I've nailed it down, but I took a piece of 3-tab shingle and cut it to size for underneath here, and both of these tabs were already loose, so we ran some face nails underneath those, and then we're just going to goop them back down, and now we have good solid shingle here to protect that. For the intents and the purposes, that will protect the roof and do what it needs to do. If this roof has, 5, maybe 8 years left in it, I'd be shocked if it makes it that long, and that is more than sufficient to keep this protected from here on in as far as the patch go. And again, we could absolutely take this apart and go the rest of the way with it, but does the customer want to spend that kind of money to get that done? Probably not. So we're going to save them a couple bucks and put that piece in there. That takes care of it. We can hide it here, we can hide the nail there, we can put some goo in there, and that is the next and the last final step is to take this product here and get everything adhered back down that we pulled up. We will also be installing a sacrificial boot on that pipe collar and a sacrificial boot on that pipe collar to make sure that they get all the way to the end of the life of this roof without any other challenges on that front. Probably gonna be solved for you. We look forward to serving you soon. Remember, we're finished. We're proud to say it's not just done, it was coat built. We'll catch you on the next edition of Forever Home. Bye for now.